Alright guys, this video is going to break down the runs from the iForm Close Flex. We're going to talk a little bit about what to run versus man versus what to run versus zone and against some of the meta defenses and some of the motion you should incorporate if you really want to take this offense to the next level. Because at the onset, or just from looking at the offense, it looks very simple, but you can make it a lot more intricate using motion. So we're going to come out in the stretch. And I'm going to come out against first zone coverage, right? Just a basic zone coverage, your cover three. Obviously, on the left side, you have more blockers, so you would want to butt pat this, right? Against zone coverage, typically you're going to butt pat this to the receiver side, right? Now you can cut that back, and that was probably the worst run stick of all time. But if you see that lane, right? Like I had a lane at the beginning, right here. Take that lane, right? If they're doing a good job of setting the edge, for example, like in that, you go ahead and you go to the 95 mic. All right, 95 mic will shoot right through that gap, and you get a huge gain. They're pinching the defense, however, the stretch is where you want to go, right? Pinch defense, stretch left. It's typically better than that. It's making me look terrible, the blocking in this game, but. That's typically what you would want to try to shoot for, right? Is if it's a pinch defense, go stretch. If it's not, go 95 mic. Now, what's the difference between 95 mic and halfback ISO? Well, halfback ISO gets straight up really quick, right? It goes straight up and down, whereas 95 mic is a little bit more, almost like a kind of a zone run, almost like HB blunt dive from the single back doubles, where he kind of takes that hitch step, and now I can kind of go whichever direction I want. I could even cut that to the right if I wanted. Like, say the defense just kind of flowed completely to the other side, right? I could take that back to the left side. So I think that gives you a little bit more flexibility. I think this run, the 95 mic does a little bit job against when they're blitzing, because it lets you kind of view where the players are coming from and get a better idea of where the gaps are that you can attack. So all three very good runs. This makes it a very effective ground attack. Now let's talk about against man coverage. Now the typical conventional way to it, or that I used to attack man coverage, is I would get all the receivers out of the way and run, and because that would make the corners flow over with the receivers, and then I would run to the empty side. Well, I don't think it's as good this year running that strategy. It's a kind of hit or miss. Like sometimes you get that, other times you kind of get stopped in the backfield. I actually think this year in this game, and this is cover one, I think it's better to actually run to the receiver side, especially if they're pressing, right? If they're pressing, boom. Yeah, so they don't react as fast, right? Go ahead and take a look at the corners. Now, there's abilities called on the ball that will make them actually react this quicker, but look at what they do initially. They initially back up. So we get a decent block right here on the outside. I probably could have bounced that out more and gotten some big yards, but you kind of just see like the principle behind it, right? In this game, man coverage will back up. They won't press in the man cover against the run, unless they have that on the ball ability. So that's something to take a look for. Now let's take a look at the meta defenses. Now we'll come out and stretch, and we'll go through the nickel overstorm. We'll go through dollar, and then we'll go through 4-3-6-1. If there's any defense I'm missing that you guys are really struggling with, make sure you leave it in the comments. I will take a look at it and see if there's any additional breakdowns we need to do. But this is Overstorm Brave. This is how people run Overstorm Brave. And I guarantee you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they're going to move this safety down and play really aggressive run defense. So if you see this, well, you have two options, right? Well, multiple options, really. You can run the ball left, right, doesn't matter. This is pinch defense. I prefer running it left, right? It's huge gain right there. Just a little bit of run stick required. Running it right with the stretch, that is. Now, you can get shut down in the backfield on this if they blitz like that outside corner. Sometimes it'll get a little hairy, but But if you start sprinting, like running through that gap, they'll disengage. Right there, I didn't sprint at all. And then obviously 95 Mike. I wouldn't recommend running the dive necessarily on this, but the 95 Mike's pretty good. Either direction, but I choose to run this left most of the time. And the blocking does really well, right? So I love this set against nickel over. Now let's take a look at the 4-3-6-1 and then dollar. So stretch and Sam Will. Now this one's a little bit more running up the middle, right? Because this player out here is an outside linebacker instead of a corner, right? Or a safety. So he's going to do a little bit a better job setting the edge, especially if there's like a really good player out there. Like LT will be out there and routinely blow up the stretch for me. It just depends on your personnel. Like I don't have the best MUT team. So you may be able to run stretch with this and not have any issues. But me, when I see this look, I typically run up the middle. But just for argument's sake, let's go ahead and run this stretch, right? Now you're one-on-one with the corner. You can make a move. They did a decent job. Let's take a look at the blocking real quick. Tight end did a decent job on this outside linebacker. He actually sealed him perfectly. You're not always going to get that, right? It'd been nice if the fullback could have gotten out of the backfield a little bit better. But it's neither here nor there. One thing you can do, and we talked a little bit about motions, and we're going to incorporate a lot of these into the passing game, is motioning this fullback out. We'll talk a little bit more about the passes here shortly. But what this allows us to do, right, is now you can get to the edge. Now you get a nice seal. The safety gets picked up, and you can run the stretch a little bit more effectively. Same deal with the left. I could do that too. And now you gotta have like this bunch look. And I got shedded on the end there. That's the danger you run. You don't have that lead blocker anymore. But, you know, there's pros and cons to both of it. But we definitely want to keep in mind that we can use motion with these runs because we're going to use motion with our passes. We do the same thing with this slot receiver, right? I can put him right here, and it's like a really good spot. And he stops in, and I didn't get great yards there, but using motion, because we're going to use it in our passing game, is very important. Now let's take a look at dive. I actually kind of like dive against this one because this runs straight at the user in the middle linebacker spot, and he's going to be responsible for 2 gaps, and it's just not going to be that effective. Now I did get a shed right there. Just depends on what kind of blocking you get. Like you up at this left. Now that center kind of pushes him off the ball, and then you've got free, easy yards. 95 Mike's still very good against this. Like I said, 95 Mike's pretty much good against any blitz. So, let's go right here. Boom. Big yards. There's very little nuanced differences to these runs. It's totally up to you how you want to run the ground game. But I have all 3 runs available to me in my audibles. Now, last defense to take a look at is dollar, and this is the sole reason I'm even running this formation, is because I'm so tired of dollar stopping the run. It makes no sense, especially when they have 8 defensive backs on the field. So we're going to go up against spinner. This is really not the type of look you want to run stretch against. Well, I guess it depends on their personnel. Like if you have some good blocking wide receivers out here versus corners, then you should be all right. But a lot of people will run safeties out there. So this is against spinner. Terrible run stick by me. Let's go ahead and try that again. I really thought he was going to shed to the outside, but all you gotta do is make one guy miss, really. And this is where we can incorporate the motion too, right? So say we really wanted to run the stretch to the left. I can... Ooh, it's not letting me... There we go. I have to butt pad it first. You have to butt pad it before you can motion. So now you can do this. Pretty easy stuff, right? The 95 Mike, very good against this. Very good. Especially when they have the inside stuff. at D-tackle. Right? This does a really good job. Just gets completely moved out of the way. Big gap. So Dollar really can't defend this very well. As long as you stay ahead of the sticks against Dollar in the run game, you should be totally fine. But this is how we want to really set the tempo and set the stage for the rest of our offense, is by establishing the ground game and making them get out of their normal base defense that they're comfortable in.